There is a part of you that you never speak of, a silent force, dark, wild, untamed, lurking just beneath your smile, your civility, your peace. You've seen glimpses of it in your rage, your jealousy, your guilt. You felt it in those moments when your thoughts betrayed you, when your actions contradicted your highest ideals. And yet, this shadow is not your enemy. It is your key. The Swiss mystic Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." But what did he mean? What is this shadow? And why has nearly every ancient mystery tradition, from the Egyptian Hermetica to Tibetan Tantra, hinted at the same truth, long before modern psychology dared to whisper it? Tonight, we journey beyond the veil of self-deception, into the forbidden corridors of the psyche, into the underworld of the soul, where your hidden fears, suppressed memories, and primal instincts reside. You see, mastering your shadow is not about conquering darkness. It's about integrating it. Not to become something else, but to become whole. In this episode, we'll explore the esoteric roots of shadow work, why the ancients believed confronting your darkness was the path to divine awakening, what Carl Jung discovered about the unconscious mind that modern science still fails to grasp, and how you can begin the inner alchemy that transforms wounds into wisdom and fear into power. Because when you master your shadow, you don't just reclaim lost parts of yourself. You reclaim your mind and unlock a consciousness that was once reserved only for sages, mystics, and madmen. Long before Carl Jung gave it a name, many faces knew the shadow. In ancient Egypt, it was called Set, the chaotic god who murdered his brother Osiris, only to be reconciled in the afterlife through the trials of Mahat. To the early Gnostics, it was the demiurge, the false creator that keeps the soul imprisoned in matter, and yet paradoxically, was born of the soul's refusal to see itself. In the Upanishads of India, it appears as avidya, ignorance, the veil that hides our true nature and casts illusions upon the world. And in Tibet, the fierce deities of the Bardo, those grotesque, terrifying forms, are not demons in the traditional sense. They are reflections of you, your repressed desires, your guilt, your unresolved karma. These ancient traditions did not see darkness as something external to be defeated. They saw it as the mirror of the self, the sacred threshold that every seeker must pass to access higher wisdom. Carl Jung, deeply influenced by these esoteric truths, broke from the rigidity of modern psychology. He dared to suggest that the unconscious mind is not merely a storage room of trauma, but a living force, a sacred and terrifying realm where gods, monsters, ancestors, and archetypes all reside. He studied alchemy not as a chemist, but as a philosopher. He realized that the strange symbols of old, dragons eating their tails, men marrying their anima, the black sun, were not just metaphors. They were maps of transformation. They pointed to a process he called individuation, the soul's journey toward wholeness. And at the very heart of this journey stands the shadow. Ignored, it festers. Denied, it controls. But faced with honesty and courage, the shadow becomes what the Hermeticists called the prima materia, the base, raw substance from which the philosopher's stone is forged. In truth, the shadow is the first guardian on the path to enlightenment. It is the Sphinx who asks the riddle, the serpent coiled at the base of the spine, the dragon on the threshold of the inner temple. Most people fear it. The wise engage it. But why has this knowledge been buried? Because it is dangerous. To confront the shadow is to disrupt the false ego's delicate throne. It is to see your hypocrisies, your unconscious desires, and your masks. It is to question everything you thought you were, and in doing so, awaken to something you never imagined you could be. That is why the temples guarded this truth. That is why mystics spoke in riddles. And that is why Jung's work, though cloaked in psychological language, remains one of the most esoteric contributions of the 20th century. So, what is the shadow? Jung once wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." The shadow is not evil. It is not your enemy. It is simply that which you have refused to accept. The shadow includes everything about yourself that you've hidden, denied, or rejected. Anger, jealousy, lust, envy, weakness, pride. But also, strangely, your unclaimed power, your creativity, your raw potential that didn't fit the mold society forced upon you. It is everything you banished to the unconscious because you were told, "This isn't who you are. This is unacceptable. This is wrong." And so it became your shadow. Like a ghost sealed in the basement, it doesn't disappear. It festers. It influences your choices. It erupts in moments of stress. It appears in your dreams as a dark figure, a monster, or a threatening presence. But here's the paradox. The shadow is not truly dark. It only appears that way because it lives in darkness. It is the light you've turned away from. Imagine this. You are born as a whole flame. But bit by bit, you learn to cut off parts of yourself to be accepted, to survive. You hide your voice, your rage, your wildness. Each hidden part becomes a shadow fragment, sealed in your unconscious. And yet, these fragments never stop calling you. Through your triggers, through the people you despise, through self-sabotage and projection. This is why Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So, how do you begin to make it conscious? You must observe your reactions. You must track your projections. Those moments where you hate someone without knowing why, or idolize them without reason. The shadow speaks through mirrors. The people who bother you the most, they carry the very traits you've disowned in yourself. Let's say you despise arrogance in others. Ask yourself, have you buried your desire to be seen? Have you hidden your confidence behind false humility? Or maybe you're drawn obsessively to someone charismatic. Could it be that you've repressed your natural magnetism? The shadow speaks not in words, but in patterns. Subtle, symbolic, repetitive. This is why Jung didn't just rely on talk therapy. He worked with dreams, with art, with myth, because the shadow lives in images, in symbols, in the language of the soul. It might show up as a lion devouring your hand in a dream, or a recurring nightmare of being chased, or a fascination with villains in films. These are clues, not of what is wrong with you, but of what you've left behind. And the act of reclaiming these parts, facing them, feeling them, and integrating them, is the beginning of individuation. But the journey has only just begun. The deeper secrets of the shadow, the hidden power it holds, and the sacred paradox it contains, await us in the next step. To confront the shadow is not simply to stare into darkness. It is to mine it for light. Carl Jung understood this as the most sacred of inner alchemies. The transformation of the base into the sublime, lead into gold, ego into soul. This process was never about perfection. It was about wholeness. The ancients knew this too. In the Egyptian myth of Osiris, the god is torn into pieces, scattered across the earth. It is Isis, the feminine principle, who gathers those broken fragments and reassembles him. That is shadow work. Gathering the fragmented self, reuniting your consciousness with the parts long abandoned. But beware, this is no easy path. The shadow often guards the very gates to your liberation, and it wears masks. Sometimes it appears as anxiety, other times as shame. Sometimes it's a crippling fear of being seen for who you truly are. But this is the secret few dare to utter. The shadow is your teacher. It tests your courage. It asks, can you love even this? And here lies the paradox. The more you reject your darkness, the more it controls you. But the moment you turn toward it with conscious awareness, it begins to transform. Not because the shadow is evil, but because it was never evil to begin with. The so-called dark emotions, rage, grief, lust, even selfishness, contain pure energy, raw life force. But when denied, they warp, they distort. They become destructive because they've been locked in exile. When you face them consciously, without acting on them blindly, but without repressing them either, you reclaim your power. This is what Jung called integration. Integration is not about fixing yourself. It's about welcoming yourself back into wholeness. It's about realizing that the demon at the threshold is often the guardian of your gift. Consider this: the more unconscious your shadow, the more fate controls your life. But the more you make peace with it, the more you begin to create your life deliberately. You begin to notice how your childhood wounds still shape your relationships, how your suppressed desires leak out in self-sabotage, how your anger isn't just fury, it's fire, urging you to set boundaries and speak your truth. Even spiritual seekers often fall into the trap of light washing, chasing only love, peace, and positivity, while denying the grit of human experience. But the mystics knew light without darkness is incomplete. In Kabbalah, this is the dance between Chesed and Gevura, mercy and discipline. In Taoism, the eternal embrace of yin and yang. And in Jung's words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That is the hero's journey. Not to defeat the dragon, but to ride it. Not to slay the shadow, but to embrace it and claim the treasure it guards. So ask yourself now, what part of you have you buried? What emotion, desire, or memory have you locked away in fear? What have you projected onto others that is yours to own? Because only when you bring those fragments into the light can you truly say, I am whole. Philosophy without practice is like a map without a destination. And so, we descend from the heights of insight into the valley of application. For what is the purpose of knowing the shadow, if not to live differently? Let us begin with a simple truth. The shadow does not hide in grand gestures. It hides in everyday reactions. The sigh when someone gets praise and you don't. The flash of envy, the bitter inner voice, the compulsive need to please or control. These are breadcrumbs. They lead back to wounds, buried deep, often in childhood. So how do we make the unconscious conscious? It begins with radical self-observation. Not judgment, not shame, just awareness. Step 1, the mirror ritual. Each night before sleep, stand before a mirror. Look deeply into your own eyes and ask, what triggered me today? What did I avoid? What felt too intense? Write it down. Even 5 minutes of honesty can reveal patterns you've ignored for years. Step 2, name your shadow. Jung taught that giving something a name gives you power over it. Was it the perfectionist? The wounded child? The manipulator? The people pleaser? Give it a name. Speak to it. Not as an enemy, but as a forgotten part of you crying for recognition. Step 3, active imagination. This was one of Jung's most profound practices. In meditation or quiet reflection, visualize your shadow as a character. Ask it what it wants. Listen without defense. You may be surprised. It often seeks protection, love, or expression. Step 4, shadow journaling. Write from the perspective of your shadow. Let it speak freely, no censorship. This practice rewires your brain. It builds a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind. Step 5, sacred anger. Instead of suppressing anger, give it space. Go into nature and scream, punch a pillow, dance wildly. Let the energy move through you. not at someone. Then ask, what boundary have I been ignoring? Step 6. Integrative affirmation. Every morning, speak aloud. I welcome all parts of me into the light of my awareness. I do not fear the dark, for within it lies my truth. These are not mere words. They're energetic keys, rewriting your inner reality. And as you practice, you'll notice subtle shifts. You become less reactive, more grounded. Your dreams grow vivid, rich with symbols. Synchronicities increase, and the people and situations that once triggered you begin to feel like teachers, not enemies. But this path demands patience. Shadow work is not a weekend retreat. It's a lifetime devotion. You will lose illusions. You will grieve old identities. You will shed masks you thought were you. But what emerges is real, raw, radiant. You become sovereign over your mind, not because you control every thought, but because you understand them. You listen to the voices within, and you choose, consciously, which one to follow. This is mastery, not domination, but dialogue. Not rejection of your humanity, but a sacred reconciliation with it. And as you do this inner work, you heal not just yourself, but your lineage, your community, your world, because the shadow you integrate today is the light your children inherit tomorrow. To master your shadow is to master your mind. To step into the fullness of your being with courage and grace, it is a journey inward to the forgotten chambers of your soul, where light and darkness dance in eternal embrace. Carl Jung showed us that what we deny controls us, but what we face transforms us. The shadow is not a curse, but a guardian, a gatekeeper to self-knowledge, to healing, to true freedom. Embrace it, and you dissolve illusions of separation, discovering the profound unity beneath the surface of your fragmented self. This ancient wisdom, once veiled in mystery and silence, now whispers directly to you, if you dare to listen. The question remains, are you ready to meet yourself in all your hidden complexity? To look into the abyss and find not terror, but truth. The mind mastered is not a cage, but a temple. And within it, the shadow is not a shadow at all, but the flame that lights your way. If this journey calls to you, take the first step with intention and heart. Explore your darkness, embrace your light, and become the sovereign of your consciousness. If this message resonated, join the conversation below. Share your experience with shadow work, or ask your questions. Together, we illuminate the path from shadow to mastery. One mind, one soul, one step at a time. Until next time, walk your inner path with wisdom and wonder.